I think by and large we could say we are relatively on the right track, but it's certainly below potential. And with politics now weighing on business activities and investment decisions being delayed till after the elections, it's likely that the economy will slow down from now till then. Now, is there a risk of another recession? Not necessarily. If Q3 data comes out well, that if we have at least 8% quarter-on-quarter growth, that will give us a positive year-on-year growth for the quarter, and we might escape a recession. Anything below that, you are likely to, which results in a negative year-on-year contraction for Q3, will most likely lead to another contraction in the fourth quarter.
So if you were going to project, because we've seen projections from different places, we've seen the IMF say about 2.1%. My analyst earlier today was a little less skeptical, more skeptical. He says he was seeing about 1.85%. You know, what are your thoughts on the amount of growth you're going to see for the year?
For 2018?
2018.
About 1% or less, in my view.
Okay, yes, you had one.
And no, it's, one is trying to be realistic. I think even that projection, one is a bit optimistic in my view, because one considers Q3, and because we had positive PMI data for July and August, the reckoning is that September will also be likely positive, so which will make Q3 growth by and large within normal estimates for that period of the year. But for Q4, the elections, this particular one is a little bit uncertain. Buhari's chances are not that rosy. With if the PDP gets its act together and chooses a popular candidate in the north, because unlike the popular perception, the president's weakness is not in the southeast and south-south, where he most likely will not get differential support relative to 2015, but actually in the north, whereby it is likely that the elites could reckon that they are better off with a younger candidate with a potential additional 4 years. That's a second term for a new person from the north in that seat. So investors looking at that reckon the uncertainty necessitates that they should be cautious, and I imagine that that will be reflected in the data.
So interesting how those dynamics play out. I'd like you to speak to something that I'm very passionate about, which is the performance of the budget. You know, we've seen a whole lot happen in recent times. We've seen a change in guard in the finance ministry. I'd like you to speak to, you know, what you think this will do, and also bear in mind the angle of debt servicing. You know, I'd like to speak to those points.
My view on the current debt situation is that if we are spending about half of our revenue on servicing debt, it doesn't matter what the ratio is to GDP. It borders on, it calls for caution if we are spending at least half of our revenue to service debt. I'm somewhat confident in the new finance minister. She has a mastery of the numbers. She might not be particularly media savvy, but she knows her onions. That's my view. Now, whether we'll be able to finance the budget, look, everyone is just taking it easy until after the polls. And you only have 1 quarter left. So trying to determine whether the budget performance will be different is too late. We'll just have to abide by what has already been done. From now on, it's not really, one is not particularly optimistic until after the polls.
So this last quarter, we're going to see another MPC meet. I think one of the key things that will be in their consideration will be inflation. We just saw a recent uptick. You know, going into this fourth quarter and looking at how things are going to play out. What's your view on inflation?
Inflation will likely trend upwards from now on. So maybe we end the year between 12 and 13%. And for most of next year, will be around 13%.
What's your reason for this?
For the year thus far, month-on-month inflation has been around 1%. And going into the elections, the conventional wisdom is that you'd have more spending around that period. So if thus far you've had maybe a run rate of 1% per month, the likelihood that you would have something lower for the remainder of the year is slim. So if you take that assumption alone, you'll probably see inflation end the year about between 12 and 13%. Now, what should the CBN do about it? I don't think raising interest rates will be differential anyway. So they might as well just keep it at its current level and then use other measures to maybe curtail excess liquidity if there's any of that as a result of such spending.